Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to today's story, The Ultimate Tragedy. Morning Jack finds his wife at the bus station, exploding with joy. Afternoon, Jack collapses at the hospital in despair over a death sentence called cancer. Fate has been too cruel to Tien. The physical wounds caused by her mother-in-law haven't even healed, and now she faces bone-chilling chemotherapy sessions. In the hospital hallway, Jack wiped away his tears and made a fierce declaration. Even if I have to sell my entire trillion-dollar fortune, I will snatch you back from the Grim Reaper. The battle for life and death begins right now. Today's story will surely bring you to tears. If you feel for Tien's fate and support Jack's noble love, please give this video a like to pray for her strength to conquer this illness. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell to join Jack on this grueling journey to fight for life. And now, let's follow the details. Leaving the dusty, tear-filled bus station, Jack's car sped toward their private villa. The iron gates opened. Tien looked at the familiar house, feeling like a century had passed. She once thought she would die rotting in the forest, never to see the rose trellis on this porch again. Jack carried Tien inside. He didn't let her feet touch the ground, as they were covered in scratches and blisters after 3 days of walking. The servants ran out shocked to see their mistress in such a tattered state. But Jack signaled for silence. He wanted to take care of her himself. In the large bathroom, steam rose up, soothing the cold that had seeped into Tien's bones over the past few days. Jack filled the tub, scattering the rose petals she loved most. He gently removed her clothes, which were caked in mud and sticky with forest sap. With every layer of clothing he removed, Jack's heart clenched in pain. His wife's once jade-like body was now heartbreakingly thin. Her collarbones protruded, and her pale skin was blotched with bruises. There were long scratches on her back from thorns that had already begun to scab over. Jack used a warm towel to gently wash her bit by bit. He washed her face, her hands, then washed her hair. The fragrant soap washed away the smell of mud, the smell of fear. Tien sat still in the tub, closing her eyes to enjoy her husband's care. Her tears mixed with the bath water. "I'm sorry," Jack whispered, touching a deep cut on her leg. "I let you suffer too much." Tien shook her head, taking Jack's trembling hand and pressing it to her cheek. "I made it back. With you here, I don't feel pain anymore." After the bath, Jack dried her hair and dressed her in the softest silk pajamas. He laid her down on the soft bed. Tien fell asleep immediately from sheer exhaustion. Jack sat beside her, holding her hand tight, watching her sleep for 2 solid hours without leaving her side. He was afraid that if he blinked, she would disappear again. When Tien woke up, she felt a little better, but her complexion was still very pale. Dizziness hit her every time she tried to sit up. Jack was worried. He thought it was the result of exhaustion and trauma from the fall off the cliff. Honey, we have to go to the hospital right now," Jack insisted. Tien shook her head. "I'm fine. I just need to rest and eat well, and I'll be healthy again. I'm scared of hospitals. I want to stay home with you." But Jack wouldn't agree. He needed certainty from a doctor. He wanted a full checkup to see if the fall caused any brain or internal injuries. That afternoon, Jack took Tien to the best international hospital in the city. The doctors quickly conducted a series of tests: CT scans, X-rays, blood tests, ultrasounds. Tien obediently followed orders, even though she was very tired. Jack was always by her side, helping her every step of the way. While waiting for the results, Jack held Tien's hand in the VIP corridor. "It'll be fine. It's probably just physical exhaustion." Jack comforted his wife, but a vague unease rose in his heart. His right eyelid kept twitching. An hour later, a nurse called the family of patient Vuong Tien. The chief of medicine, an old family friend of Jack's, stepped out with a grim expression. He didn't smile or greet them as usual. In his hand was a thick medical file. "Jack, step into my office for a moment." "You too, Tien." His voice was deep and serious, making the air around them seem to freeze. In the cold office, smelling of antiseptic, the doctor adjusted his glasses, looking at the young couple with pity. "Regarding the soft tissue injuries and exhaustion from being lost in the forest, we've handled it. Nothing to worry about. A week of rest and she'll recover." Jack sighed in relief. "Thank you, doctor. So we can go home?" But the doctor interrupted, his voice dropping. "During the general blood work to check for infection, we found an abnormality. An extreme abnormality. We performed an immediate bone marrow biopsy to be sure." Jack's heart pounded. Tien suddenly felt a cold chill run down her spine. The doctor handed over the result sheet covered in dense medical jargon, but the conclusion line stood out. Tien. She has leukemia, acute myeloid leukemia. Currently, it's in the early stages. The room seemed to explode. Jack shot up from his seat, knocking his chair over with a crash. "What did you say, cancer?" "My wife is only 24 years old. She's very healthy. Did you mix up her file with someone else's?" Jack screamed, refusing to believe his ears. His wife had just escaped death, returning from the deep forest. She had just come back to life. Why would God strike her with another death sentence? Tien sat frozen in her chair. Her ears were ringing. She couldn't hear Jack screaming anymore. In her head, only one word echoed: cancer. The doctor sighed, explaining, "It's possible that the psychological shock, physical exhaustion in the forest, and trauma triggered the malignant cells to develop faster. However, the silver lining in this tragedy is that we caught it in the early stage 1. Survival is still possible. Still possible." "What does that mean?" Jack grabbed the doctor's shoulders. "It means we must treat it immediately. She must be hospitalized today. The treatment regimen will be incredibly harsh: chemotherapy, radiation, and possibly a bone marrow transplant." The doctor looked straight into Jack's eyes. "But I have to warn you, the cost will be astronomical, billions of dong per cycle. And the time, Tien won't be able to have children during treatment. Her hair will fall out and her body will suffer pain 100 times worse than being lost in the forest. And most importantly, if we delay even 1 month, the cancer cells will metastasize. At that point, even a miracle doctor can't save her." Jack's arms dropped to his sides. He looked at Tien. His tiny wife was trembling violently, tears rolling down her cheeks silently. Just escaped the claws of an evil mother-in-law. just escaped wild beasts in the forest, and now she had to face the Grim Reaper. Fate. Why is it so cruel? Jack walked over, kneeling in front of Tien, holding her ice-cold hands tight. Honey, I'm going to die, aren't I? Tien asked, her voice shattering. I just got you back. Why didn't God just let me die in the forest? Those words tore Jack's heart to pieces. He looked up, his eyes burning with fierce determination. Don't you dare say that you are not dying. The doctor said it's the early stage. We can save you. Even if there's only 1% hope, I will save you. Money is not an issue. I'll sell everything. Sell the house, sell the car, sell the company. Whatever it costs, I'll handle it. As long as you live. Jack turned to the doctor. Use the best drugs. Invite the best professors from abroad. Start the treatment protocol tomorrow. I don't care how much it costs. I just need my wife to live. Tien looked at her husband, who was ready to trade everything for her. She understood that her battle for survival wasn't over. It had just shifted to another front, fiercer, more painful. But this time, she wasn't alone. She had Jack. They walked out of the hospital when it was pitch dark. The yellow streetlights cast their shadows on the pavement. A tall man supporting a frail woman. On their shoulders now was not just the burden of revenge against the mother-in-law, but the burden of a race against death. Tien's time was counting down day by day. Will Jack's love be big enough to defeat the disease? Will Tien have enough strength to see the day her evil mother-in-law pays for her crimes before she closes her eyes? Fate really knows how to play jokes. The joy of reunion was short-lived. The vicious disease is silently gnawing away at Tien's life every hour. What will Jack do to cover medical bills while dealing with the malicious schemes of his ex-mother-in-law's family that haven't stopped? And a bigger question, is this cancer diagnosis truly random? Or is there another agent behind it related to the days she was held captive? At the hospital, Tien's battle was silent but fierce. The first drops of chemotherapy began to flow into her emaciated body. Bone-deep pain and crushing fatigue began to torture the young woman. Jack sat beside her, gripping her hand, his eyes red but shining with resolve. He told her, "You just focus on fighting the illness. Leave the people who hurt you to me and the law." And true to Jack's word, outside the hospital room door, another war, the war for justice, was reaching its finale. Based on Tien's weak but clear testimony about the suspect's appearance, the truck and the journey into the forest, the police quickly intervened. An emergency arrest warrant for Mrs. Tien's ex-mother-in-law was issued that very night. When the police raided Mrs. Tui's house, she was sitting trembling in the living room, fingering a stack of cash money from selling Tien's stolen necklace. Sirens tore through the night. The loudspeaker boomed. Mrs. Nguyenti Thui, you are surrounded. Open the door and surrender immediately. Mrs. Tui dropped the glass in her hand, her face draining of all blood. She knew Judgment Day had arrived. The door was smashed open. Police officers stormed in. The cold handcuffs clicked onto the wrists of the greedy woman. She screamed, begged, but it was all too late. She was escorted away amidst the contemptuous stares of her neighbors. in the cold interrogation room under the yellow light, casting shadows on her haggard face, Mrs. Tui initially denied everything. She claimed Tien ran away on her own, fell on her own. But when the investigator laid out the evidence, the gold necklace sold at jewelry store, security footage capturing her truck heading toward the forest edge, Mrs. Tui broke down completely. She slumped onto the table, beginning to confess a horrifying truth no one expected. It turned out she didn't act alone. I didn't mean to kill her. It was him. It was Hung the Scar who forced me. Mrs. Tui sobbed. The story rewinded to that fateful afternoon. That fateful afternoon, Mrs. Tui, addicted to gambling, had borrowed a massive sum from a loan shark named Hung the Scar. Interest piled upon interest, and she was unable to pay. That day, Hung the Scar brought his henchman to her house, held a knife to her throat, and threatened to sever her tendons if she didn't pay up by the end of the day. Right at that moment, Tien came home to visit, or was tricked into coming back. Mrs. Tui knelt down, begging her daughter-in-law to pay the debt for her. But Tien, having been exploited so many times, firmly refused because she didn't have cash on hand, and she knew giving money now would only fuel the gambling addiction. Hung the Scar, standing in the shadows, spotted the gold necklace with the sparkling emerald on Tien's neck, her birth mother's priceless keepsake. He signaled Mrs. Tui, "Get me that necklace, it clears the debt." Cornered and threatened by the creditor, Mrs. Tui lunged to snatch the necklace. Tien panicked and fought back fiercely. "Mom, what are you doing? This is my mother's keepsake. You can't take it." The two struggled back and forth. Hung the Scar lost his patience. He rushed in and shoved Tien hard to help Mrs. Tui. The shove was too violent, causing Tien to lose her balance and fall backward. Slam! Her head hit the edge of the stone table in the garden. Fresh blood flowed out. Tien lay motionless, eyes closed, her breathing so weak it was almost non-existent. Both Mrs. Tui and Hung were terrified. Hung checked her breathing, his face changing color. "Dead! She's dead, old lady." She stopped breathing. Fear took over. If the police found out, they would rot in jail for robbery and murder. In panic, Hung came up with a cruel plan. "We have to dispose of the body. Take her deep into the forest, throw her off the cliff. Wild animals will take care of the corpse. It'll look like she went missing." And so, Mrs. Tui, a mother-in-law, out of cowardice and fear of punishment, became an accomplice to the devil, carrying her daughter-in-law, who she thought was dead, but was actually in a deep coma, onto the truck, driving straight into the forest. Mrs. Tui's testimony made even the investigators shudder at her cruelty and cold-bloodedness. Just for a gambling debt, she was willing to rob her daughter-in-law, and even more horribly chose to dispose of the corpse instead of calling for help. If Tien had been taken to the hospital that day, perhaps she wouldn't have endured 3 days of hell in the forest, and who knows? Maybe the cancer wouldn't have progressed so quickly due to exhaustion. Based on the testimony and evidence, the police charged Mrs. Tui with a series of serious crimes, robbery, with the aggravating circumstance of using force struggling, having an accomplice to appropriate high-value property. The penalty bracket is very high. Attempted murder, Although Tuten is alive, the act of throwing a victim in critical condition into the deep forest is an act of depriving life to the end. Her survival was beyond Mrs. Tui's control. Failure to rescue, not helping a person in a life-threatening situation, facing a combined sentence of 20 years to life imprisonment. The prison doors have opened slamming shut on the future of a greedy woman. From the detention cell, Mrs. Tui screamed and cried, repeatedly saying, "I was wrong. I regret it. Let me see Tien. Let me apologize to my daughter-in-law." But are these tears true remorse or just fear when standing before the judge? The news of Mrs. Tui's arrest and that gruesome confession was relayed to Jack. Upon hearing it, Jack said nothing, only clenching his fists until his knuckles turned white. He hated her. He hated that he couldn't punish her himself. But he knew that letting the law punish her was the most painful ending for her. Jack walked into the hospital room where Tien was lying hooked up to chemotherapy. He gently told her everything. That Mrs. Tui had been arrested, that she confessed everything, and that she was crying and begging for forgiveness. Begging her to drop the charges to reduce her sentence. Upon hearing this, Tuten turned her face to the window where the rain was beginning to fall. Her eyes were dry. She had no tears left to cry. Forgive. How can she forgive the person who pushed her into the abyss? How can she forgive the person who stole her mother's most sacred keepsake? How can she forgive when that woman's actions indirectly pushed her to death's door like this? Tuten whispered her voice, weak but resolute. Tell the police, I respect the law. Whoever commits the crime must pay the price. I will not drop the charges. I want her to take responsibility for what she has done. This isn't blind hatred. It is fairness. Tuten was too gentle, too forgiving before, and the price she paid was her own life. This time, she chooses justice. Mrs. Tui's apology, no matter how sincere, is too little too late. What's done is done. Ladies and gentlemen, Mrs. Tui has been caught. Partial justice has been served. But there is still one person roaming free outside the law. The real mastermind, the one who shoved Tuten, the one who ordered her body to be dumped, hung the scar. Based on Mrs. Tui's testimony, the police are casting a net to catch this cold-blooded gangster. Who is he? Where is he hiding? And when cornered, will this dangerous criminal return to hunt down Jack and Tuten to silence them forever? Meanwhile, Tuten's health is deteriorating after the first round of chemotherapy. Her hair has started to fall out. Violent vomiting spells last all night long. Jack has to watch over his wife while coordinating with the police to catch the remaining accomplice. The war isn't over yet, my friends. Will the police catch Hung the Scar before he escapes the country? Will Tuten have enough strength to testify at the upcoming trial? Please tune in for the next extremely intense episode, Manhunt for Hung the Scar and Tears in the Courtroom. Leave a comment saying, support Tuten, to give her faith in her fight against cancer. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe to follow the journey of capturing this criminal ring. Goodbye and see you next time.